Hi there, Year 1 children. It's Mr Yeardsley here. Sat outside your classrooms actually, enjoying a bit of sun. I've got a story today for you. It's called Cops and Robbers. It's by Janet and Alan Olberg. They've written quite a few books together. They've written a book called Funny Bones, which I think you might have read sometime in school. Let's find out what the cops and robbers get up to. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. Here are the cops of London town, hard-working, brave and true. They drink their tea, stay up till 3 and take good care of you. Here are the robbers of London town, with crowbar and skeleton key. They prowl and creep when you're asleep and take whatever they please. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. That's not very nice, is it? The worst of the robbers, as most of us know, is dreadful Grabber Dan. His voice is gruff and he's pinched enough stuff to fill a furniture van. His mate in the gang are Snatcher Jack and Babyface Billy the Bag, Pegleg Horace, Fingers Morris and villainous Grandma Swag. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. They look like a motley bunch, don't they? This dreadful snatching and pilfering bunch would rob a baby of his lunch. This sneaking, creeping, fingering lot would burgle a burglar, like as not. This peg-leg, baby-faced villainous crew would pick the pocket of a kangaroo. Now we hear there's worse to come, for the robbers are planning, the scallywag scum, to make a haul on Christmas Eve of all the toys that they can thieve. Like crooked Santas, they'll creep about, pinching presents, not giving them out. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. There they are planning. It's not a very nice plan, is it? The best of the cops, by common consent, is upstanding Officer Pugh. He could run like a hare and fight like a bear, and he's good at crosswords too. There he is there too. So on Christmas Eve, when the trouble began, the station sergeant said, "The thing to do is to send for Pugh. He'll get them alive or dead." "Listen, Pugh," said the sergeant, "the problem is this. There are toys going missing galore. From the size of the job, we suspect it's a mob. What they need's the strong arm of the law. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho." There's the police planning their defence. Meanwhile, outside in the gloomy street, the strong arm of the robbers was working a treat, and the strong leg too, and the beady eye, keeping watch for passers-by. In at the windows, in at the doors, down the chimneys, under the floors, through silent rooms the robbers crept, while in their beds the children slept, dreaming of Santa Claus and snow, and what they'd get from Uncle Joe. They never knew that Uncle Morris was robbing them, and Uncle Horace. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. The lookout man was Snatcher Jack. He stood in a doorway yawning, but when Officer Pugh came into view, Jack saw him and whistled a warning. You see him there whistling the warning. There's Officer Pugh coming. Grandma Swag, when the warning came, was pushing a pram up the road. It was piled high with loot and stolen to boot, a thoroughly villainous load. "Hello, hello," said Officer Pugh. "Now then, what's going on here?" "Not much, young man," said the criminal Gran. "We're just having a robbery, dear." Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. But before Officer Pugh could unravel this clue, the robbers were on him like beasts from a zoo. They knocked off his helmet and rumpled his tie, trod on his truncheon and kicked mud in his eye, pulled his ears and tickled his feet, threw half of his clothes all over the street, punched and pummeled him, wham, bam, slam, even ran over him with the pram. Give up, the robbers cried as they sat on the officer side by side. We've got you outnumbered 5-1, for in the confusion Grandma had gone. But Officer Pugh just shook his head. We've hardly started, boys, he said, and he laughed a laugh and grinned a grin. Sitting comfortably, are you? Then I'll begin. With a sudden leap, he bounded free and handcuffed Horace to a nearby tree, tied Morris up in an empty sack and beat the daylights out of Jack. Help! Shouted Billy. This can't be fair. That Pugh's not human. He fights like a bear. My mother was right. Crime doesn't pay. And with these words, he fainted away. Grabber Dan was the last to cop it. Grandma, of course, had chosen to hop it. Dan tried to hide. The officer sought him. Dan tried to run. The officer caught him. Dan went to lift Pugh over his head. The officer lifted Dan instead and whirled him round and swung him whoosh across the road and into a bush. Down he tumbled, skidded, rolled, hit a concrete gnome and was knocked out cold. Pugh dusted his hands and sat on the wall. A little snow had begun to fall. He looked at the gnome and patted its head. You could get a medal for this, he said. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. Here are the cops of London town. In the station at 2:30. They drink their beer and raise a cheer for upstanding Officer Pugh. Here are the robbers of London town, in cells all gloomy and grim. Let us out, not guilty, they shout. And it wasn't me, it was him. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. And the toys? Oh, they were taken back by Santa Claus, Copper with a Santa Claus sack, while the rest of the force searched day and night for an elderly lady of medium height, with a fondness for earrings and red fox furs, and a habit of taking what wasn't hers. She usually carried a sizable bag. Her name, of course, was Grandma Swag. They were looking out for her. Ho ho for the robbers, the cops and the robbers, ho ho. Well, just goes to show, doesn't it? Crime doesn't pay. And the police are here to look out for us and take care of us, especially in times like this, and make sure that we're safe and staying inside whenever we can. Year 1 children, I'll see you soon. Remember our school motto, if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours and keep on smiling.